Good afternoon. Hope everyone's had a good lunch. Everyone had a nice bit of food, a little bit of drink, refreshed. These days can be long sometimes, so good to have a breather. Hope we're not nursing too many food comas in the room. As people are strolling through, we're going to hop across the Atlantic now for this next presentation. We have a panel, and there's no denying that when it comes to fan engagement, of course, and direct-to-consumer experiences, nobody does it quite like our friends across the Atlantic in America, the NBA specifically. So next up, we're being treated to a very special presentation by the NBA's Head of Fan Engagement and Direct-to-Consumer Strategy for EMEA, George Ayvazoglu. I hope I pronounced that okay. Not bad for an Englishman, yeah? Who will give us obviously a breakdown of how the association has grown its footprint throughout Europe by using hyper-localization and direct-to-consumer strategies. And your host for the session is Lucas Dorda from the Johan Cruyff Institute. So enjoy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully you will be also uploading after the session. So hope you are holding up well. Lunch was good. I see a lot of not that tired faces. So hopefully we'll enjoy the session. Obviously, I'm very happy to share the stage with George today because this is going to be a very, very interesting session. So today, by the way, not sure if you are fully aware or not, but the NBA starts. 75th edition of NBA starts tonight with amazing games, isn't it?
2 amazing games, yeah. Stay up late, please.
Yeah, it's like you have the actual champion Milwaukee Bucks against Brooklyn Nets, and you have Golden State Warriors later against Lakers. So I do believe that as this is really the specific and very special edition, 75th edition, Diamond edition, let's just start with a short video, guys. If you can set it up, we would highly appreciate it.
Please? Come on, hop on.
Good morning.
It's the NBA 75th. All right, guys. We're getting ready to take a stroll down memory lane. Don't get left behind. It's all about the brotherhood here.
Good morning, neighbor. Top of the morning.
But also,
This is my house.
claiming what's rightfully yours.
This is my house.
Hey, seatbelts on, seatbelts.
Hey, Spider!
What's up, Russ? Take notes, kids. Flyers dressed in the NBA. Around here, it's never too late to learn a new trick.
What you want to do is get it off your fingertips.
From the sky hook
Gracias, George.
all the way to the alley-oop.
Oh, throw it down, big man. Good pass, bro.
That was an instant classic. This community right here stretches to every corner of the globe.
The globe doesn't have corners.
You know what I mean.
Big jump up!
We've come a long way from the peach basket.
My bad.
Not again.
Where you think you're going?
Gary,
You can't get by me.
they call him the glove. This is what he does. Even nicknames take on a life of their own.
Somebody call the doctor?
Is that who I think it is?
This league is full of game changers. When it comes to legends, the NBA's got more than its fair share.
And I ain't finished yet.
That's what I like to hear. Some things are bigger than basketball. Now we've seen kids turn into kings and give it all back to the next generation. There's a piece of this game for everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, or yeah, that too. Your move. Now that's just fun. Nice ride, Zeke. Hello. Fit is clean. It's been 75 seasons and counting. One thing's for certain.
This game just keeps getting greater.
The game don't stop. It won't stop.
I said no.
All right, so 75th edition, anniversary. So let's start to speak about fan engagement towards this very unique season. What would be the overall goals in terms of overall engagement before this season?
I mean, let me start by saying that every time I see this ad, and I'm biased, I'll recognize that. I get the goosebumps. It's just amazing. So well done to the team who did that. And also by saying how nice it is to be here in person and be able to do this in person in such an amazing venue. So for us, this is a milestone year, obviously celebrating our 75th anniversary. Hopefully welcoming back, well, definitely welcoming back fans back in all of our arenas throughout the season, which is huge. And hopefully we're going to have a very, very exciting, wide open season. Coming down to fan engagement, I think for us the plan is simple. Continue to do what we do very, very well. Engage the fans with the power of our games and the power of our players, but also try to figure out ways to do it in a very relevant, hyper-local, as we say, way.
Okay, we will go back to that, to the hyper-local. I'm very interested in this. Before that, in your role, because obviously you are mainly focusing on Europe, on Middle East, yes, NBA in the States, huge thing. I'm not saying in Europe not, but obviously for you, how difficult it might be, or what is the overall strategy that you and your team are looking forward in terms of engaging with the fans and with different segments, because obviously we know that segmentation is a very important thing. So when we will go through the segments, but starting with the overall goals, what it would be, or the main challenges for you?
Very good question. Look, I'll start by saying that I'm very lucky because I run our fan engagement direct-to-consumer business at a time where we have more European players at the NBA than ever before. And that matters a lot. And it's not just that we have the numbers, also many of these people are protagonists in their team. And for some of them, you can even argue they're the faces of the league. So that's a huge lever right there for us in itself. Then also lucky for having such an amazing team and support back in the US, producing amazing campaigns like the ones you've seen. So what then becomes the day-to-day for us is how we use these levers in a way that's very relevant for the local audience. And I think therein lies the answer. Fandom is not one thing, and fans are not one segment, right? Especially in a region as diverse as ours. 70 different markets, many different languages, many different backgrounds when it comes down to the adoption and the love for the game of basketball. So we'll try and do it in a way that's very native to each of those fandom dimensions. For some people, that means I just want to lean back and have a viewing experience and watch a live game, be it, at a prime time for Europe, which is quite a few games throughout the year, or later, or watch on League Pass, or watch the highlights the next day. For some others, it might be a more multidimensional fandom, which would include, I want other experiences like gaming, like fantasy. I want to buy merchandise because I love playing basketball. And we try and have very original and very authentic value propositions that cater for all those fandom types.
Okay, I'm very happy that you mentioned several points. I wanted to do some follow-up questions, so that's great. You mentioned several European stars that are almost face of the league. So how does it help having Luka Doncic, Rudy Gobert, having Giannis? Obviously, I couldn't avoid to mention Giannis, especially being you from Greece. Congratulations, by the way, for Giannis and for winning the.
I thought I had a complex surname until Giannis came up. That's terrible. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So how does it help having all the faces from Europe in order to build the overall engagement in those specific markets?
It helps a lot. We've seen throughout the years, and I don't think that's a basketball only or an NBA only. I think it's across sport, that local heroes are one of the main, if not the main lever for driving fandom and what comes with. So we see the results of that. The impact, I guess, is very, very visible throughout our social touch points, our following numbers, how people consume our content, both live and on demand, how they buy merch. You see Luka jerseys flying off the roof in Spain and Slovenia. You see Giannis jerseys in Greece. So it's pretty evident across our business.
Okay, going a little bit deeper in those different segments, if maybe this is a very tricky question, but if you would be thinking about the main segments, I know it's different because you said it, different markets, different languages, so many different specifics. Who would you call the main, let's say 2, 3, 4 segments in Europe?
I don't think there's an answer as such, and definitely Europe, although for many people outside of Europe, they would look at Europe as one consistent region. That's not the case, and I'm sure these guys know it better than any. I would say what we're trying to do from a segmentation standpoint is assess the fandom type. So for the time being, I think we're very much focused on our core business, which is viewing, which is content, and that takes many shapes or forms. We've seen, obviously, the live games are a huge crown jewel for us, but we've seen last year, a bit more than a year ago, The Last Dance and how that performed, so you'll see us do a lot more in that area from an original content standpoint, both long form and mid form, and you see different consumption types depending on the platform or depending on the style. So some formats will be designed for YouTube, some other much shorter for other social media platforms. Maybe at some point we'll try to put content like that behind a paywall on our League Pass app, and obviously continue to do the live games and everything in relation to the games very well. But then you move into younger segments and younger demographics. They interact with the NBA in many other ways. They play fantasy a lot, so we have to have a very strong presence and assets there. Obviously, they buy merch. They play 2K, which is a huge, I guess, not just younger generations, right? But you see that demographic skew younger.
You know, I was supposed to be the Chris Paul, and you were supposed to be the slam dunking, but you're already passing me a lot of very interesting opportunities to ask.
We've practiced that, so that.
So yeah, you mentioned those few areas that I wanted to touch upon even more, which is gaming. Obviously, you mentioned 2K, you mentioned fantasy. How does the league is being involved? Let's start with 2K first. With the overall 2K creators, there is a very tight bond between the league and them, or it is maybe even
it's a very tight bond, but it's a separate structured organization, and the NBA I think does that pretty well. It just enables creators be authentic and original because that's what matters to their audience. So we work very closely, but obviously they're an independent team running their own thing. But that's to our benefit and to the game's benefit in general. You'd see every year when the ratings on 2K come out, that creates like conversations and challenges and questions, and players get involved and fans get involved, and that's amazing for the brand and that's amazing for the game.
And what about the fantasy? That's another big important part, especially in the United States. It's a huge thing. Even we could still consider that fantasy could be considered in some states as a hazard, which is forbidden. But how is the take of the league on the fantasy and fantasy sports?
Yeah, again, it's just going into another audience that enjoy being a GM in the position of a GM and playing with that fandom time. And I'd say it's pretty big in Europe. It's significantly growing. We're seeing pretty big numbers. Actually, in Spain, I think last year it was the second most popular fantasy game after La Liga, and we all know how big La Liga in football is here. So that says something in itself.
That's very unique. I will go a little bit back when you were mentioning several European stars. This is going to be the first season where there will be no Gasol brothers in the NBA. No Mark, no Pau. Could it be a big hit for the Spanish market, for example, in order to create engagement?
I mean, obviously, we know what they represent. They're amazing stars for the game, amazing ambassadors for Spain. We had a very iconic moment with Pau retiring a few weeks ago. But I think, the Spanish fans are big basketball fans. They're so amazing Spanish players still playing, being protagonists in the NBA. There's amazing young talent coming like Osman Garuba, and there's going to be way more. And this is a basketball country, which is obviously, reflected to the successes of the national team, the Spanish clubs. So I wouldn't be expecting to see any numbers going down. As a Greek, I'll personally say that I'm happy he's retired because they've been beating us for so many years. So it's about time, yeah.
Okay, this is pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting something like this. No, I'm just kidding. I know that it has been very, very tough, obviously playing for them, playing against them, if you are not from Spain. So let's move a little bit on. And the important thing for you, obviously, as head of as vice president of fan engagement, and obviously in charge of the D2C strategy. So if you could just sum up the basic pillars of the D2C strategy, which they would be?
Well, direct-to-consumer strategy, I'd say for the time being, is very much centered around our core business, which is viewing products. And that's the League Pass. And there's a lot of work behind the scenes on the platform side to create an in-house, 21st century cutting-edge platform that will allow us to do many things in the future. But in the near present, it will be more about enhancing the viewing experience by giving the audience significantly more choice than what we do today. I think the near future will probably expand into what we would call like fan membership and what we could be doing in the space of community and assets like fantasy, as we've discussed. Merchandise, marketplaces is another dimension we're looking, and then it's future innovation and other digital products and services. We've seen the recent results and the amazing success we had in the space of NFTs and digital collectibles with Top Shot. Obviously, there is a lot around participation and how we enable and help people who want to play the game of basketball access information, access people, access products that help them do that. So you'll see us do a lot in that space as well. So I'd say for us, these are the three pillars: viewing, membership, and participation.
Especially during the COVID, during the pandemic, the last season, not the Bucks, when Bucks won, but the previous one, when Lakers won in the bubble, watching NBA games felt real. Not sure why. Obviously, there were no people in the stands. It was in the bubble. It was very specific environment. It still felt much real than watching football games. Obviously, I'm speaking about watching it. So was it because you were already being innovative and you were involving different camera angles, the possibilities when you were watching the game through the League Pass, change camera, switching different angles? Do you think that this might help to improve the overall viewership experience?
Yeah, it definitely has helped in terms of the viewing experience, but I would say the bubble in itself was an amazing undertaking, and I've been in the sport business for more than a decade now, and I've seen nothing like that happening so successfully, so quickly, under these extremely difficult conditions. I think the whole operation in itself was a huge reason why it was successful.
Okay. You've already mentioned innovation, digitalization, which brings us to the next topic I would like to touch upon. And that's obviously, you mentioned at the beginning, going from global to hyper-local, and obviously throughout some digital strategies. How do you envision it? What's the strategy behind it? How do you want to achieve it?
Well, I would say the NBA is a very global brand, and it's a core differentiator in our strategy to become truly and locally relevant. I will reiterate some of the things I've said. I think investing in talent at a grassroots level, that talent becomes tier one talent, and what we call local heroes is a huge driver. So we'll continue to double down that. We do a lot of that in Europe with our junior NBA programs. You'll see us do that more in Africa. Obviously, we've started recently the partnership with FIBA with the BAL, so that's a core pillar. I would say content that feels more original, authentic, and coming from these sides of the world. You'll see us do a lot more, even throughout this year, our 75th year, but we'll continue even after the 75th year. The 75th year has expired. And then I would say the third component, when that's allowed, and hopefully, a lot of what's happened over the past year and a bit is behind us, we'll bring teams and games here, and that's another big way to make this game even more relevant and even more localized.
Okay. Recently I heard a quote which just stuck in my mind, which says that if content is the king, distribution is the queen, and she wears the pants. So, you mentioned the word content, obviously. You are working a lot, the whole creative team behind the NBA, it's working a lot on producing content like you have seen in the video. So what would be the main distribution channels in order to spread it across all the different segments that you were mentioning, across all the different markets that you are interested in?
Yeah, I'll give you an oversimplistic answer. We want to be wherever our fans are. So that means that from a distribution standpoint, it's a multi-channel, multi-platform distribution. Obviously, we have an amazing partnership with many media broadcasters in Spain with Movistar. We'll continue to enhance and support that. There is a big part of the audience who consume content differently and may be living on other types of platforms and apps like TikTok, like YouTube. So we'll continue to strengthen our presence here. And thirdly, and as I've said, direct consumer is really important for us. So we'll continue to build our own sort of channels and pipes and having that direct relationship with fans as well. And I think all of them could work very well complementary because there's different segments, and these segments have different needs and different consumption habits.
I will go a little bit back to the gaming part, especially to the 2K, because the funny thing is thinking about fan engagement and analyzing fan engagement in different sports, especially the young segments, those young kids, 11, 12 years old, the generation Alpha, Generation Z, for them often they are playing FIFA and they don't realize that they are actually playing for real or with real football players, because they are not used to watch football anymore. How do you envision to tackle down, obviously, and to work with the young segments to show them that the NBA is here, not only obviously from your point of view, which is Europe, which is Middle East, and to get them used to watch NBA games, because obviously in the future, 15, 20 years, those will be the main segments that might purchase and you will be able to monetize on.
Yeah, so look, the technical part of the answer, and this is a very business savvy audience, so they'll get it very easily, is that's another reason why you want to have this direct consumer relationship. You get access to that type of data, you leverage that data to create new propositions to enhance the relationship with those segments even more. So you'll see us tapping more and crossing over even more than we have to, and then when time allows, we'll do other things like actual physical events where the game is played, bring some teams and some players to Europe, some actual players there to promote. So it's going to be very holistic, but fingers crossed, COVID allowing that, we'll do that sooner rather than later.
That's very good. That's very interesting. I'm not sure how we are doing with time. I think we still have some time. That's very important. So let's move on a little bit. Obviously, let's finish where we started, which is the 75th anniversary edition. What would be the expected outcome for this? Obviously, there will be several. I'm not sure if you can even talk about this, because there might be some surprises. But thinking about what's next, what would be the main events that NBA is looking forward in order to basically foster the overall engagement?
Yeah, look, so we'll start over the next few days. You'll see us releasing the best 75 players of all time. I think that's going to create, the space, and will give the material for a lot of discussion, a lot of interaction with fans, with media, between players, teams. So I think that's one of the first things we'll do. And then in the region specifically, we're preparing a very big consumer activation that will run in a few markets, Spain being one of them, over the next few weeks. And then as we move towards the All-Star, there's going to be a lot of original content that's being released with a closer view and focus on European talent, European basketball cities, origin stories of players who've come to the NBA, but the real background stories, they come from a European city or they played for a European team. And that's just one of the dimensions that we'll try and leverage to make this feel more European.
Exactly. That's,
I don't know if I've said European too much.
No, I mean, it's very important, because obviously the difference when you compare how the overall sport is being perceived in North America and in Europe, it's very much different.
Very different, yeah.
It's about show across the ocean. It's about results, often in Europe. You could go to watch a game. I've been to many NBA games when the home team lost. The fans were not unhappy because they had show. You cannot say this to a season ticket holder in Premier League that no worries, your team lost, but you had fun. This doesn't work like this, so it's very important to...
The way the sport is perceived by fans is very different, but that's what makes it unique and authentic and cool. So we want to find ways to enhance that, yeah.
All right, let's proceed with one maybe last question. The main point is that speaking about obviously ambassadors, I was already touching upon several names. How the overall ambassadors, not only those ones that are from specific markets like we were speaking about Giannis and Luka, but the main stars of the game overall can help you to spread the overall engagement in markets when perhaps they are not that much famous because they are not from there.
They do that significantly, but I would say when it comes down to ambassadors, our strategy is quite nuanced. And the NBA is one of those sport brands that I would argue, and again, I might be a bit biased, but it sort of transcends sports and crosses over with other aspects of culture, like lifestyle, like music, like fashion. So whilst it is important and will continue to leverage players, current or ex and legends, we also want to have ambassadors out there that represent other types of culture. And in Europe in particular, we do that a lot with musicians, we do that with football players. Recently, I think a few weeks ago, we launched a 2K celebrity tournament where you have many tier 1 football players participating, music stars playing, and that just helps the brand, address fans who come from a different background and might not be pure basketball fans. And I mean, there's other brands that do that. I think F1 is an excellent example, and what they've done with Drive to Survive. But I think ambassadors for us play that multi-dimensional, I would say, role.
The reason why I was asking this question is obviously the video that we have seen at the beginning, because when I'm seeing what NBA has been doing and what NBA is doing, it's more understanding it not as a sport, it's more like sharing and promoting a certain style of lifestyle.
That's exactly right. And I think that's a big USP for the NBA across the sports spectrum. Yeah.
And it's very important because I like that you mentioned all the different ambassadors, not only from those stars or those legends, but because obviously with the NBA there is particularly related certain music style, certain style of clothing, etc.
Yeah, and I would say, crosses over with culture, but also with society. I mean, you'd only have to go back a little bit more than a year ago and last summer in the US and the Black Lives Matter movement. So it is a brand that is in the center of the dialogue, and that conversation, could skew towards the fashion side or the culture, but also towards society and its problem. And we do want to play that role very, very actively.
Another very tricky question, so I'm really sorry for asking this.
I don't believe you, but...
Obviously, speaking about NBA as a global phenomena, comparing it with perhaps different leagues. I'm not saying directly those across the ocean, so NHL, NFL, etc., but maybe how different leagues, like football leagues in Europe, are trying to engage with the fans. What would be the difference, according to your opinion?
I would say the main difference that I recognize is that if we just take the European football scene, I think the teams, the clubs, are the main brands that express or nurture a dialogue or a conversation with the fans. So there is super respected and amazing organizations like the Premier League, La Liga, and many others. But I don't think their strategy so far has been that they want to be a consumer brand in the same way that the NBA has. Whereas the football teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, obviously transcending one sport, but they are brands as well. So I would say that's probably the most important difference that I see. But at a global level, I don't even think there's many other leagues outside the NBA who do that. I mean, the NFL is definitely pushing forward, and they recently had a couple of very, very successful games in London. But I think that would be the main difference, yeah.
In the previous minutes, you already mentioned the word which in the recent weeks and months has been the famous buzzwords, NFTs and tokens. How NBA as a league, what's the stand of the league on this topic?
We've definitely embraced it and are in a great collaboration with Dapper Labs when it comes down to Top Shot, and you'll see us do a lot more there. Obviously, very recently, most of our teams, I would say many of our teams, have entered this new fan tokenization world with a new partner, actually a Spanish startup. So there's a lot of innovation happening on that space. There's a lot of innovation happening from European startups as well. So I think for me the question is, how do we continue to do that, but also how do we organize ourselves here in the region in a way that enables those disruptors to come to us more organically and try things more quickly and more natively. I think that's going to be a big priority for us in the region over the next few years.
I cannot imagine that this is going to be a big priority, because obviously this is a very unique way how to not only monetize, but obviously how to engage with the fans. Because when I was a kid, even though I'm looking young, but I'm not that young, I was basically collecting different cards of
Panini cards.
Yeah, Panini cards or Panini stickers, and also as I was always a big fan of ice hockey, I was collecting NHL hockey cards. So obviously nowadays, and when I was a kid, I needed to trade it with other people. Nowadays, it's that simple that you could trade it through the blockchain technology, etc. So, how is the envision of this for you, from your point of view of the NBA?
We'll definitely continue doing both, because I think there's fans, probably us too, among them, that still enjoy the physical cards and that type of memorabilia. And that's, a business, but also just an expression of fandom. And then, just looking at the results, and Top Shot's been around for a little bit more than a year. That's exceptional. That must be one of the best product launches in the history of sport. So we're definitely going to double down on that side, and then find other ways, like the fan tokenization, the work that's going to happen with some of our teams, and socios who are Spanish, who are from here, is just another example of how we our take on it.
Until now, we've been mainly speaking about digital engagement in different forms of engaging that are not related with purely match day or physical contact. Obviously, it was on purpose, no worries. The main idea behind this was the fact that we've been still going through, and we are still going through, pandemic situation. However, the season that starts today, it's going to be with people in the arenas. Obviously, the last season already, NBA teams, several of them have been having almost full arenas. So what would be the overall take on of the NBA on the match day engagement? How do you want to maybe help the teams or engage with the fans on a match day basis and in a physical way?
Look, in the arena, I would expect that we start the season with what's always been the case, a superior in-arena experience for all the season ticket holders and people who visit, obviously taking into account health and safety of both the fans as well as the staff. And my hope and expectation is that we finish the year the same way we started, and we return to normality. At a digital level, I think you'd see from tonight, actually, an enhanced product on our viewing apps, so additional camera angles, additional choices, additional commentary in language in many cases as well, to just make that experience richer and more fulfilling. And there is more innovation coming probably around All-Star time.
And in the presential way in Europe, where or what do you want to do in order to engage with the fans and take advantage of the fact that there are less restrictions, fans can move a little bit more? Do you plan to do some viewings in Europe, maybe of the playoff games or All-Star game?
Yeah, I think we'll still be careful in what we do in regards to fan events this year. And obviously the nuance here is that different countries have their own different protocols, so that makes the exercise a little bit more complicated. So we've announced, for example, that we're not going to have a global game, which we had every January, next January. But we'll try and experiment with some consumer activation events. I hate the word phygital, but it's going to be a combination of physical and digital components. And hopefully soon enough, it will be an even better world from that standpoint, and we'll be able to go back to our normal routine.
Hopefully. Before, in the previous answer, you mentioned several things that I still wanted to follow a little bit, and which was the NBA Pass. We were speaking about it a little bit. Now you were saying that from today onwards, we'll be seeing different angles, different cameras, different commentary. This is something that, as a fan of the game, I definitely enjoy a lot, because it's a very unique way how to enjoy the game. So in terms of innovation, what would be the next in terms of engaging with the fans? What about virtual reality, augmented reality?
I'm not allowed to tell you. No, look, I think on the viewing, you'll probably see additional choice, additional distribution, the likes of smart TV apps. I don't know if I would call that innovation, but it's definitely a step forward. I think for us, the main innovation starts coming to fruition on the basis that this will be our own platform that supports that. That's a huge step for the business and the league. And then all the ideas that we're discussing and will soon be launching in the areas of membership, community engagement, and participation. I think those additional products and services, and we're not going to do them all in one go, and we're not going to do them all over the next year, but I think that's going to be tremendous growth for how direct-to-consumer businesses will be done.
One of the things that was very well received, both in the NHL and an NBA, was miking up the players, especially those funny ones, like it could be Bojan Marjanovic in Dallas Stars, even Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic. Are you going to, perhaps, not sure if you're even able to answer this question, but as a part of the engagement, it would be a great initiative to have more possibilities, to have more players with a microphone throughout the game, hearing from them those chirps, those funny lines that they are mentioning. Do you think this is something that will happen sooner or later?
Definitely, no, and it's one of my favorite things, and the content that we create off the back of that always, is one of our highest scoring or performing type of assets, so a lot more, yeah.
All right, I've been told that the time is running up, so first of all, I would like to thank you, George.
Thank you guys for bearing with us.
I think it... And I will just very briefly wrap this up because thank you very much for the organizers for this event. I think it's very unique to do something like this in still the conditions that we are facing. So congrats for you guys, and thank you very much for all of you to bear with us throughout this session.
Thank you.